fields. And so now we have kind of a big hole in the ground filled with sand that's allowing a lot of preferential flow coming off the hillside, coming down gradient, kind of filling up that sand-filled hole. And eventually it overtops, even under natural conditions, and especially under a load when you turn those septic systems back on.
Now, if you were to construct a trench on the outside of that 25 feet away or so that was lower than the whole system and diverted that groundwater that was going, below the surface, just like you say, the sand is going to be a sponge. It's going to collect the water rather than push the water out. If you did something to collect that water and bypass those systems, then I've seen that done quite well and important to do it when a system is built. Is that something that is feasible enough that you could, in other words, have everybody agree that that's something that could really help it and work and would work, so that you could avoid, invest the money into doing that? Does that make sense to study?
We had asked that at the last meeting, and and again, Jason and Kevin are on the call, but I think they were trying to steer us away from that. They can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the impression I left that discussion with.
I think what we discussed in the meeting was what we had discussed originally before you started doing anything out there, which was to install monitoring wells more spread out around all 4 systems to determine what the path of groundwater flow was, so that then we could have an intelligent discussion about a solution to the problem. We don't have that. And so that's why we said we're not ready to make a decision, because we don't have enough information to make a decision.
I would agree with you, Wayne. That is an alternative. Basically divert the groundwater around or away from the leaching area so it doesn't well up.
So that would make some sense, right?
Yeah.
At this point in time, there's no exit for the groundwater. So yes, you'd be diverting groundwater coming in from the hillside. It's not a really big watershed up gradient of this particular site. In fact, I think, Sean, when you were observing the test pits, some of them were weeping at a good rate, maybe 2-3 gallons a minute, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the lower 2 were, or particularly number 5 was definitely an elevated rate. So much so that we thought there might be a water main break or something out there. So we did test for that to determine that there was not.
But your entrance driveway is probably lower than the bottoms of the upper leaching fields, right? In terms of, just as an idea of the grades on the property.
Yes.
I think it's very unlikely that you could discharge the water to your friendly neighbor right down the hill. You'd have to go either one side of it and go over to the little lane over there in the wetlands on the wood side of the property, or you've got to go down to the bottom of the hill and have it go down in that natural water course that's at the bottom of Sawyer Street. So, but digging and putting in adequate perforated pipe and all of the materials going in and then bringing it up to the surface with a sand certainly is it's probably going to be cheaper and better long term than what it'll cost each of the property owners in fees to connect onto public sewer, and then the uses that you're going to have to pay every quarter to use the sewer. So, some of this should really be thought off and do things that are basic, that are proven, rather than maybe something that is too much of a gamble in some other way.
Wayne, this is Jane. I agree with you, and we've been trying to work with the town to do anything we can to get our 4 systems, if you will, certified. At this moment, I believe the Board of Health has told us that they won't certify 1 and 4 because we have to prove they're not in failure, even though they're up on the other side. And we'll be happy to do whatever wells or whatever is necessary. But we've been told not to bother submitting Title V certification to the town because they won't sign off on it for even 1 and 4. We understand 2 and 3 are very questionable at this point. I would say we're willing to do almost anything that we can to rectify the situation of 2 and 3, which if they aren't, whether it's a drain, whether it's putting wells to test the water and then doing a drain, we'd certainly much rather that solution at this point. But we don't want to, if we have to relocate 2 and 3 to another spot on the property, that is hugely expensive. We have 27 homes, right? So it's not, we don't have a big base of residents to spread the cost over. So we're very willing to work with the town, but they have to be willing to work with us to come up with solutions that that will give us at least some relief on. I mean, we're paying $1,000 a week to pump, and we have been since November, complying, of course, with the town, and certainly since we've gotten the failure letter on the 6th of January. But it's not something that we can. We're not sitting comfortably back and waiting for someone else to solve it for us. We want to aggressively solve this, but somebody has to work with us in order to do that.
We are more than willing to work with you guys. We have been from the start. And I find it somewhat offensive for you to say we haven't been working with you to solve this problem.
Jason,
I was willing to allow an unpermitted repair of that system if it would work to save you guys the cost of hiring engineers to design a remediation.
Jason, I'm not saying you're not working with us. You have been working with us. It just, at this moment, it feels like we're really stuck between a rock and a hard place, and are looking for some.
I agree. But the problem is we continue to have groundwater flowing off of the hill. So if you add additional groundwater by putting a new discharge back in place, you're only going to exacerbate that problem. So we can't just allow you to reload a site that is continuing to break out with water, be it groundwater or water from the other 2 systems. That has not been confirmed yet. We asked for a groundwater contour map to be developed to determine if the water is flowing from the front 2 systems out the side. We still don't have that profile that I've seen of those 2 systems in relationship to the groundwater. So there are still things out there. We are willing to allow things to be done. We need information. We can't work inside of a black box.
Right. But Jason, you can't, one of the solutions, in my opinion, is that you can't build a large retaining wall between the road and the failed system and expect that to
Again, Wayne, that was before we did any investigations. I agree. We can't just, it'll mound and eventually overtop. Agreed 1000%. We didn't realize it was as bad a situation until we started to dig.
Right.
That's why we took
And I'm not, listen, I think we, this is the whole discussion today is one that normally never comes in front of the sewer commission to sort of solve a problem. I guess it comes if it's a failed situation that has basically proven that it can't be rectified on site by other means, then clearly it is a problem. You know, when the Red Lion Inn in 1970 had the sewer going into the catch basins and had no land except the ledge it was on, sewer was the only option for it. And you know, so this is a situation where you've got 20 or so acres of land, and this might not have been as well thought off when it was built, or different corners might have been cut a little bit. And And now we're in a situation where these systems, two of them anyway, have to have a solution that is going to be affordable and reliable and long lasting, or it has to, go offsite.
And that was one, we did not say, by the way, that sewer was available and or anything to that effect. We had said to the engineer that he should, for the client, develop a matrix of options, repair, moving the system, what that cost would be, develop a cost matrix and present it to the client. And if sewer became the best alternative money-wise, to come and discuss it with you guys to determine if that would be a viable option or not. But to put everything in a matrix before they start spending money evaluating everything, put together a matrix of costs for their client and then move forward. That was
Jason,
what we recommended.
can I just make one thing clear? We didn't go to the sewer commission. Pam went to the sewer commission and the town manager went to the sewer commission to discuss Cook Estates, which we were made aware of. So we only went after we heard that we were on the agenda of the sewer commission meetings. That's why we're here. We haven't done an application for the sewer. We'd much rather look at options on our own site and solve our problems. If sewer becomes the best alternative, we'll go through the process of coming to the sewer commission with an application. But we're really here because our name was on agendas publicly and we didn't know about it until we stumbled upon it.
Yeah. And Jane, I think we welcome this. I don't mind this at all. And there's some good engineering talent on the screen. And if there's a solution that can be just, sort of looked at, that, that's the whole purpose of the call today, is to sort of a status report of where you are and what, with the engineers on now, as to what might be the good next step to do tomorrow or the next day, and help solve the issues that seem to be getting worse.
And I agree with you, and I appreciate the assistance and the extra help. From Jason and Pam's point of view, they've been really helpful. The peer review, you guys, it's great. I don't mean to sound, I'm not angry. It just feels like we're spending a lot of money, and we'd love to get to a resolution so that we stop spending the money that feels wasted and come to a solution that's going to make sense for us. We know we're going to spend money to do that. Whether it's developing a matrix, whether it's about, putting in new test pits up by fields 1 and 4, evaluating other places on our site, and we know it's all going to cost money. But we appreciate the help. It's just frustrating to be sitting where we are, I think, at the moment.
I have one just quirky little thing to sort of ask the engineers and stuff, and that has to do with, is it possible to put in a series of wells with pumps and actually pump out the groundwater and use it for irrigation on the premises, or have that be discharged rather than putting that 25-foot deep trench that I talked about with perforated pipe and sand up to the surface? Is that something that is worth at least looking at, or is there any possibility that something like that might work?
Wayne, I was just actually waiting for a break in the conversation to ask something similar, but not so much as it relates to irrigation, but would it be possible to redirect or pump that groundwater into even a dry well to help it dissipate before it, before it goes down the hill?
I mean, if you put in a cutoff wall or a curtain wall above it, and then had basically a leach pipe installed on the upgrading side, you could depress the groundwater table and drain it off to some location. At that point, it's probably only groundwater. So, you could basically direct that to.
Right. If we went above the leaching fields, and
Correct.
and attacked it from above and
Yes.
redirected the water, then it would not collide with any of the
Right.
effluent.
The only thing I fear is that basically, and I heard it earlier, that basically a well was created, a depression of good sand, and that potentially the infiltration horizon, one of the upper sea layers that might have been accepting the groundwater flow, could have potentially been interrupted by the roadway construction. So that basically the groundwater really doesn't have a great location to leave. Well, the wastewater would fall into that same category too. Even though you might divert it, you still have to get rid of the wastewater and allow it to infiltrate. And if that roadway cut into that infiltration layer or somewhat friable layer, permeable layer, then you may not have a good mechanism to infiltrate that wastewater flow. I had a question on, that lower system, which is number 2, has a gravity piping system. Has anyone looked to see if that's collecting water? Could be maybe that's acting as a, if it has high infiltration, could be redirecting additional groundwater to that area, surcharging the system. All the other ones are pump systems, so I didn't know how much, maybe your pumping records would indicate, how much flow you have, but I don't know if you're taking it out of tanks or taking it out of manholes. You know where you're pumping from?
Both field 2 and 3, I believe, they're pumped. So the houses have the the E1s, and so the low pressure main that discharge to the septic tank on all of those fields. They're septic tank by gravity. Only one field on the other side is completely gravity flow to the tank. The remaining 3 are all pumped to the septic tanks.
Right, and that's the one field, I think it's number 2, that's all gravity?
That's true. Two is all
So the question is that, where are you pumping from for system 2 right now? Are you pumping from the septic tank, a manhole? How are you pumping that?
The houses, from when it gets, when Romano Davis comes, they're pumping it out of the tank.
Okay, so you have pumping records that you're using right now? Have you estimated the flow?
I'd have to ask Paul Davis that. I do know he has been keeping track of it so that he can time when he needs to come.
So my only point again is if that's one system that's all gravity versus pressure, the gravity piping, if not properly constructed, could be basically intercepting the groundwater and bringing groundwater down to that system, causing the surcharge in elevation. You need to evaluate what the flow is to that system. And probably the best thing is pumping records, if you've been pumping that system out on a regular basis. No.
One other situation, Dan, that brings up is that I've gone up through the subdivision there, and I've seen a couple of cases where there are pipes that are coming out apparently out of the basement drain, and they're literally flowing down, and it's going into a catch basin and stuff. Do you have assurance at the association that no one is putting sump pumps in the basements into their own sewer pipe leaving the building, whether it's gravity or whether it's going into the E1 pump? Because that can be something of you putting more water than, as Dan says, how much water is really going into the systems versus what the systems are designed for. Any thought on that?
Sean, any thought on that?
I can ask, again, I'll ask Paul Davis for some of the pumping records, but I don't think that is the case because of the amount of groundwater that we encountered when we dug some of those test pits. He's only going like once a week out here. So there's not a whole lot of flow that's, over and above what would be expected. And I know, at least from talking to him, that it's similar, the amount that he's pumping out of each system each time. So like 2 is relatively close to 3, what he's seeing for flows when he's pumping it out. But I'll circle back with him and really dial in on those numbers.
And you're not seeing any breakout currently below 4 and 1, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
There's been no indication that 1 and 4 have had a problem, as I understand it. Paul Davis was ready to issue Title V on those quite a while ago.
Yeah.
That was the one thing we wanted to get from Sean Hardy, was to make sure that that preferential path does not connect the front 2 fields to the second 2 fields, and therefore is contributing to that continued dampness in the hillside there. So that was the question that still lingers as to those not being. And by the way, Paul can pass those. That's his choice. It's his license. He can pass those if he chooses to. We
Yeah,
cannot
one thing
say no to that.
I thought I heard, and correct me if I misheard, but I thought you were pumping out the systems and for the most part it dried out. And then the question was, and I wasn't sure, it went back and forth, it seemed there weren't, the water quality for the down gradient well seemed to clear up. Is that correct, or was it not sampled correctly? Anybody?
Sean, do you want to?
We took a
Wasn't developed.
sample out of the wells. But as you heard, the peer review and from Jason, they want us to develop the wells and resample.
Okay. Well, certainly if you're pumping out of those and you go and resample and find them clean, that would answer the question whether 104 is actually making its way over to this area. And so it would allow basically 1 and 4 to be approved if you're not seeing any type of contamination in the well sampling if done properly.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a hydrogeofocus, so we also recommended looking at groundwater contours across the site to identify which way groundwater is flowing, so that we can also verify if the 2 fields are connected.
And again, just getting back to one of my earlier things, if you're looking at sewer relative to sewer connection as an alternative, you have to exhaust the existing on-site alternatives. And it looks like you do have some available area between units 18 and 20 and 24 and 19 and off to the side. Potentially that could be used for using a different system, you know, like a drip or something. So there should be some type of discussion or evaluation regarding that. And you'd be able, it would appear you'd be able to abandon 2 and 3 and have sufficient area to infiltrate on the top part.
So can I lay out what I think I hear as next steps? That number 1, it sounds like peer review, Kevin, you'd like groundwater contours developed, pump out the wells and the existing 5 and retest the water and see where we are, and evaluate alternative sites on the property.
That's correct. That was the result of our last meeting.
Okay. And Jason,
Hey, was there anything Jason was waiting on test results for, or testing?
No, that was what the recommendations were, was
Okay.
groundwater contours. And then whenever you sample the wells, you need to purge and test. You
Yeah.
develop them the first time, but then every time after, you still pump 3 times the volume. This is standard industry practice for well sampling. You pump 3 times the volume out of the well, and then you let it refill and sample.
great.
So that's what we expect to determine water quality.
Okay,
Can
so is that going to satisfy your needs, Jason, for what the town is looking for?
100%.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one more question? Because it's a different answer than what I got, and maybe I didn't hear my experts effectively. Jason, if Paul Davis feels that 1 and 4 at this point are not in failure and are working properly, and certifies them, that the town, I think I heard that you have to sign off on, I apologize for not being an expert on this, but that you and the Department of Health have to sign off on valid Title V's. And I had heard from my experts that you were suggesting that they not do this at this point because you wouldn't sign off. I think I heard something different a minute ago, which said that if he certifies them and finds them to be working properly and not in failure, then I would have Title V certificates valid for 2 of my 4 systems.
I would leave that to Pam. I don't know if she signs anything when they come in. And she's here. So
Yeah, no, we actually don't sign off on them.
Oh, okay. I was given information that was incorrect right then. Great. So we're gonna talk to Paul about trying to get 1 and 4 certified so that I don't feel like I'm holding all my residents at hostage if they chose to put their condo, and they're the ones going into 1 and 4, and we have that map. You know, if they chose to put something on the market and are not holding back because of this.
yeah, because what I think at this point, Paul might be hesitant, and this might be why he's holding back, is if we show that they are hydraulically connected in a groundwater map, then they do become subsequently failed. So that might be why he's holding back that sign off, because if they are hydraulically connected and we're still continuing to see breakout in the hill, then that breakout is from the front 2 systems.
Okay.
Not necessarily, but are these wells just a 4-inch pipe, 10 feet in the ground or so? Is that what we're dealing with?
Yes, 4-inch perforated pipe.
Okay, and perforated right up to the surface?
Yes,
So you're getting, you can be getting clean water and dirty water, but you don't know where.
yeah, I mean, the tops of them are above grade and they're capped, but you're right, in theory, something surface runoff could go down and make its way down this through the.
That's why too, Wayne, so when we originally met, we had recommended doing well couplets, drilling, putting small monitoring wells around with a micro drill rig, with couplets at different elevations to determine if there's any difference in the groundwater elevation. If you have a confined aquifer below that they may have tapped into as they were doing this, that may actually be forcing water up into the systems from below.
Right. You know, that may, doing something like that may be the best way of being able to judge the groundwater flow and whether or not it's been cut off by the street and things like that, whatever. So maybe that should be, you know, one of the things that Sean, you should look at. And you're dealing with probably a 2-inch pipe there then, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're small, 2-inch. It's just a little mini rig. They vibratory install them, and you can set the elevations of the screens at whatever you want them to be.
Jason, have we not done the wells that we have the way you had asked, or are you asking for additional information?
We had originally, in our proposal, we had said, personally, what I would have done was put wells all around them to determine the groundwater flow. The whole point of this is we are seeing groundwater flow. We don't know where it's coming from. You can't determine that by just digging a couple test pits around. Sean and Paul wanted to see what the soils look like. That's why they decided to do test pits. They wanted to actually see the soils, do perk test themselves. So that's why they went that route.
Generally
Just to
speaking,
cover the site entirely.
yeah, generally speaking, the observation wells, monitoring wells that you install would have a solid sleeve in the upper strata. Only the bottom would be perforated. When you're using the perforated pipe all the way to the surface, basically it's susceptible to fertilizers, surface runoff, and contamination. So when you're sampling these, Jason said, 3 purges per well. You may want to consider doing more purges just to really flush those wells out and try to get a better sample.
Yeah, that was suggested at the last time, to create a contour map, a groundwater contour map. And Jason is correct. Initially, there was enough variation in what all these soil reports were, elevation of groundwater, soil type. We wanted to see it firsthand and do, like a Title V inspection, not knowing where groundwater was, determine it by soil modeling with the test pits around it, and suggested that we put the wells in so that we could go back and take additional measurements and tests after. The cost for these 5 test pits versus a day with a drill rig and was, it's a scale of 10. So we wanted to get out of the gate first, lay eyes on it, see if these fields were sitting in groundwater, determine the soil type, whether or not it was even worth to move forward. Then at the last meeting, I do acknowledge we were asked to do these other wells and groundwater contours, but it came to our attention that we were on before this board. So I think the condo association wanted to see what was going on this end and just to enter into these conversations.
And if you've been pumping for a while now, those downgrading wells that you have below 2 could give you an indication if 1 and 4 are contributing to this area.
Yep, I agree.
Sean, can I recommend that before you go out to do additional field work, just to send over a plan so that we can all be on the same page?
Yeah, we definitely will.
Thanks.
Why don't all 3 of you, Jason, Dan, and Sean, all just agree on something, and then that'll be our input and town's input and Sean and the association's input.
Too, and peer review so that we don't get.
And Board of Health. Because it can only help towards a good solution at the best reasonable cost and also give us the sewer department the ability to be able to help if we need to.
Right, and can I just say on behalf of the Board of Health too, this is Pam Fahey. I requested a while ago some input from DEP, and they were not optimistic that doing further septic could be a permanent solution. They were afraid that the condo association would spend a lot of money and get a solution that might only last about 5 years. And so it was their recommendation that we turn to sewer. Because from an environmental standpoint, it's the best solution. It's a permanent solution. And that's why I kind of came to the sewer, just to find out if it was feasible, if it was possible. Because if it was economically, feasibility wise, it would be the #1 option. So it was interesting to hear Dan say today, just kind of put in perspective and saying, really, you need to exhaust all the other options first before you turn to sewer. So I didn't know that. That was good to find out. So I think in the big picture, the best thing is to get as much information as we possibly can from a site investigation, because you don't want to design some system that's not going to last more than 5 years. We don't want the condo association to throw good money after bad. So I think if we listen to Kevin, who is a hydrogeo expert, we can do the best field investigation possible and then try to come up with something before turning to sewer. So, we really are all on the same page, honestly. This isn't, one group versus another. I mean, this is like, we don't want the condo association to spend a lot of money if they don't have to. And we want a permanent solution in the long run. So that's where I'm coming from in terms of the Board of Health.
Thank you all for your assistance at us helping to figure this out. It's helpful to have a lot of voices and with some good experience. So we appreciate a lot your working with us on this. So I think groundwater contours, develop them, pump out the wells and retest and evaluate alternative sites on our property. And those are the things with Sean on our side, and Kevin and Jason and Pam and Dan. If you would also assist us on that, we'll run the plan by you and see if we can move forward quickly on it.
Sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
Smile.
All right, next we
Thank
have, sorry, next we have a discussion for the Diaboline lots.
Yeah, and Lisa, before we start, I'm going to recuse myself and ask Wayne as vice chairman to run it on behalf of the board.
Okay.
And I did see Matt on here earlier, but it looks like he popped off, but I just,
Yes, Steve Ryder's here.
Stephen Ryder's here. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think my camera's working, but I'm here.
Okay.
Steve, you want to revisit or sum up for the board?
Yes, thank you very much. We were making progress here, and we had some miscommunications, which caused, I think, some misunderstanding with the board. After, I think it was our last meeting, the board had given us Mr. Shannon until February 1 to file applications in order to use these 3 sewer connection rights that were transferred and kind of inherited from the Templar House. The board then sent an email out indicating that Mr. Shannon had to pay all his real estate taxes in order to get these things processed, and he did. He took that quite seriously, as I laid out in my letter. We paid all the amounts that were asked for, and in fact, Mr. Shannon ran in with a $90 check on that Tuesday to pay off the fee that he hadn't been told about on the Friday. I think the thing that caused a miscommunication between the treasurer's office and the board was that some of these taxes had already been sent over to the tax collector. And so the check that Mr. Shannon gave directly to the treasurer's office of $2,201.22 to pay the DIOP taxes was then sent to the tax collector, deposited by him, and then they have a policy of waiting 2 weeks before they remit the money to the town. Now, this is something that we didn't know about. And I think that's why the board got the erroneous report that he hadn't paid on time. When in fact he had. We were just waiting for the tax collector to remit the money back to the town. So I would like to get back on track here and have the board vacate the decision they made before, allow Mr. Shannon to use the 3 Templar House EDUs and approve his present applications for sewer connections.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Ryder. I just want to say on behalf of the board is that the board was not the one that went out to look and see that in fact taxes hadn't been paid, but we had received a list of people that we were not supposed to, people and companies that we were not supposed to issue any permits, and it went to all boards and committees, so that when we got that letter, we had to say, okay, Matt, this is something that you have to do, right away, so that you're not delayed further, and we don't want to be responsible for you being delayed further, because we were still hoping for the February 1st date. So I guess the situation now is and I guess it's a question for you, Attorney Ryder, is what are his plans next? Because one of my concerns is that if we vacate the decision, does this mean that Matt Shannon has the ability to have those permits for the sewer, and he owns the land, to go on for months or years before something happens on those lots? Because we're running into a situation where our capacity at the plant has our excess capacity. What we have to do is getting smaller and smaller. The previous discussion about the property on Sawyer Street is one of that's going to chew in a lot into our capacity, and there are other applicants that are chewing into capacity, and we're going to get a situation we're going to have a moratorium or something. And I don't mean that we're close to that, because this is a public meeting and I don't want people to say that the sewer department is considering that right now, but it is things that can happen in the future. So
I think Mr. Shannon's plans are, he's as of last year, and it's one of the reasons why we originally came to the board, is to move forward with developing these 3 lots. So I think it's not going to sit there for a long time as it kind of had in the past. I think the market is now such that, and Mr. Shannon believes he has the financial resources available now to move forward and construct the houses, which is kind of what he always wanted to do. So that's why we want to move forward with the sewer connection permits.
So Wayne, do you, are we able to give it a 24-month?
Well, our regulations say that you've got to start construction within 6 months.
Okay. Well, I know under the pandemic and COVID-19 restrictions, I know that some places have asked planning for additional time. I don't know if they gave that to everyone in town or just certain applicants.
The history of this particular situation goes back 5 or 6 years. Okay. And the situation is just one that the average person is going to say, someone received a benefit for half the money that the town paid half of that benefit, and the applicant paid half of that benefit, or a previous, someone who hit before him. And that benefit now has, if you were to go in today, is $37,500. And the person has less than $6,000 into it. That it doesn't seem to be fair to the people that are paying permit fees today to do something for someone who was able to move it from one place to another and have that situation. Now, money shouldn't matter, but it is one that the town needs the money as it goes and does. We need, as an agency, we need money to fix the things at the plant and expand the capacities and to run a department that costs more today than it did 10 years ago. So, that's heck. And we gave extension after extension after extension after extension. And then we got to a point and say, wait a minute, this fellow is just he has this right that is just, is just going on and on and on. And when is it going to stop, and is it fair?
Okay, so if, I see that Matt is now on, but the question I have for you, Wayne, is if we vacate and approve the application, our sewer policy is that construction would have to start in 6 months. Is that what you're saying?
That's what it says right now, yes.
Okay, so Matt, are you prepared to comply with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so you could start construction within 6 months?
Yes.
Okay, and then Wayne, what is the clawback for the sewer department if something doesn't happen 6 months or 8 months or 10 months? There's a delay there.
I guess what I would do would it, rather than going through this whole thing over again,
Yeah.
where we're reserving that flow, and we get no.
So how long can we reserve the flow for? I'm asking for the clawback. So if he doesn't build it within 12 months, we rescind the permit and it comes back?
Well, see, we don't want to get a situation where where it doesn't happen. And my feeling is, and maybe this is Matt, if you don't do something by a certain period of time, you would then have to pay the increase to what the permit would cost today if you were to go and get it today automatically in order to, to continue with whatever it is that you're doing.
This is Steve Ryder, if I might address that. I think, and I understand your hesitancy given how long this has taken, but I think we now have plans, construction plans. I think we're kind of on the verge of submitting for a building permit to start the foundation and that kind of thing. I think this is a go. And I don't think you're going to find yourself in 12 months. I don't think I'm going to find myself back here in 12 months asking for more time. I think this is a real go this time.
I have a question. Matt, are you going to sell the lots to another builder?
That's not the plan now. It's to develop them.
Okay. So you're going to actually hire the people to do it. Okay. That was my curiosity.
Yeah, we're ready to go actually, as far as, I did already file for the building permit, and they just want they want an application for water as well. And then the building inspector said he'd sign off on the foundation permit.
Okay. So, Attorney Ryder, what kind of a note can you write that says that the board is willing to vacate this, and that that Matt will commence construction within 6 months for each of the lots, and if he fails to do that, then the fee would increase from the $6,000 or so, whatever we can get you the amount that was the original amount, to the existing fee structure.
I think I
Is that
could.
a fair thing to do?
Yeah, I think I could fairly quickly, give you a draft of a proposed vote to that effect. And again, I think that'll work, because I think we're kind of full speed ahead at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could vote to vacate the prior decision and then hold off approving the application until we receive that letter from you?
Well, just based on those conditions that, now, I want this to be a sort of a, I don't know how to say this, but I don't want this to be demanding on us. I just think it's the only fair thing to do based on the history, and one that it sort of benefits all parties, that this is not, we don't, for instance, after this thing happened, have done this again, because we had so much flack from people that are paying the larger amounts now, and how can they do this? How come that situation happened? So I sort of want to get this behind us and not continue it any further. And I don't want to have, anything else. And I guess, is Rod still on? Rod, is this something that is something that we can do?
Sure. I mean, you're basically saying that the, he continues to be entitled to, you know, what might be described as a discount, but only if construction is initiated before, what is it, September 15th, something like that?
Sure.
Yeah, 6 months, whatever that is from now.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so Attorney Ryder, if you could get together with Rod and just come up with language that you're satisfied with, then I can make a motion that we will approve the application for sewer pending the submission of the agreement.
Great.
Can I just say, the applications were submitted, but they have not been reviewed yet, so I would caution on approving them right now. Just,
Yeah, I'd like to receive the letter and review the application again prior to moving it forward.
Oh, it's the engineering part. And there is, by the way, a separate fee, which I don't know if you paid the $1,000 or whatever the fee was. It's now $1,700, but for each lot to review the plan, but make the inspections of the connection and stuff.
Yeah, there was a check, I believe there was a check for $150, which was a permit for trenching or something like that, and then another check for $3,000 that accompanied the applications.
Okay, that's probably was $1,000 for each lot.
yes,
Right.
I currently have that check. It has not been processed yet.
Okay, was that still, okay, so we're pending that the check goes through, or you want to have a new check, Lisa or Matt?
No, you can use that one, that's
That
fine.
one's okay.
It went up to 1,700 each though, now.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
additional.
Yeah.
Matt, did you capture that? That the fee for the application fees are now 1,700 per lot?
When did that change?
Tonight. I mean, today.
Today.
No, but it was voted on previously and not for you. It has to do with what the fee counts now is the inspections that are being done, the testing of the, you're going to have pressure lines there. The pressure tests on the lines and the expenses outside of our realm, meaning you're covering the cost of the people to make the inspections and to do the testing.
So you mean it had changed to 1,700 before January 26th, whenever we submitted the application?
It was formally done today. It was, and it had, by the way, has no,
I'm not sure that the new application fee would apply to him at this point.
but he hasn't Lisa, tell me what we have and what we have to have. There was a plan that I saw, okay, that showed proposed sewer line and the proposed house, right, for each of the 3 lots. What else did you need besides that?
So those applications were not put through because of the tax issue. And they still have not been put through because of the ongoing issue with the lots. So I've held on to them.
Can I just ask you a question? So if my math is correct, at the 1,700 for each lot, does that mean we would owe another $400 or another $600?
2,100, 7 3s of 21, right? So he's paid 1,000.
Oh, I see.
So it was $700 increase.
Okay.
And
Oh, I see. Okay, all right.
do I have to ask our legal counsel if we did that today and his we didn't act on his expired, given him the extension, and we had already vacated, we already made a decision not to approve it, and haven't vacated that decision, that in fact the $700 would be due on this from our vote today. Does that make sense?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. All right. So, Matt, our attorney agrees that your applications were not valid at the time that this was voted on, and it was not voted just for you. It was really voted because we found out that we were losing money on each $1,000 to the tune of approximately $700. And in going over our budget and our what our responsibilities are, that didn't make sense. And so we, without any, so that's what we did.
I was going to say if it was $400, I would just knock it off Mr. Shannon's bill. But I'm sure we'll take care of this. We appreciate the board.
The way the real estate is in Cohasset, I think that he'll do very well.
Yeah, we're hoping. Yeah.
Yes, I know. Okay, so Lisa, where do I stand right now?
We need to make a motion to vacate the last decision from not allowing the connection as it was, or not allowing the application to go through under the old Templar house. We have to vacate that.
Why don't I think we have enough identification on the thing, so that we'll say that I make a motion that the sewer commission vacate the denial of the 3 lots on, and we could do the lot numbers 5, 7, and 9, or whatever they are. 3, 5, and 9, are they? Diab Lane.
9 and 15.
Okay, Diab Lane. When we receive the agreement letter that is being provided now, that will be submitted within the next, by our next meeting. Okay. And as soon as that's done, if you can do it tomorrow or the next day, that's fine.
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
I don't want you to wait 2 weeks for something that you're going to do right now.
Right.
Do it this afternoon.
Maybe instead of vacating, maybe you want to, Chairman, reconsider. Just from the perspective of, if you vacate the previous decision, then he has existing approvals back then, which would predate your application.
Right.
So just make the motion to reconsider your previous vote.
Okay, I make a motion to reconsider the previous vote, and that's all the motion's going to say on this property. So if I had a second.
Paul Kears, second motion.
I, Wayne Sawchuk. Now that we have the right to reconsider, then now the motion would be that provided that certain conditions are made and construction begins within 6 months of this date, that we will extend the time to utilize these 3 EDUs from the Templar house for the lots on Diab Lane. Did I cover everything or no?
I think that works.
All right. I mean, you guys, I think everybody understands it, and I think the motion.
Paul Kears, second.
Clear. All right. All in favor Wayne Sawchuck, aye.
Paul Kearsey, aye.
And Bill McCowen excused himself. Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, bye.
Bye-bye.
I don't have anything on other business. Does anybody else have anything?
Are we going to executive session today?
First, we'll have to, yes, we will.
We have one participant, Jim
The agenda
Carpenter.
was other business. I'm sorry, what was that?
We have one participant still, Jim Carpenter. Does he want to speak? Want to open it up or?
I don't even know if he thinks I don't know if he's.
He was here for the Cook Estates.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just lurking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have to make a motion to adjourn and go into executive session and then go back on the next call, correct?
Yes,
Right. And do we have a new number to dial into or what?
we do. So it'll be a meeting that's not recorded. So what we'll need to do is you'll have to motion to go into executive session.
Yep.
If one of you can read that exemption, so you have to read the whole thing.
Yep.
And then we'll vote to adjourn this meeting, and we'll go in and we'll close it and go into the executive session.
Did you
Okay.
send a new?
that link was sent out prior.
Yes, the link is sent. If you added it to your calendar, it's in as the second meeting. It's like 2 of 2.
Yeah, it started at 10:30.
And we also need to note that we will not come back into public session after the executive session.
Okay. So I make a motion that we go into executive session according to exemption number 3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, litigation. If a open meeting may have been detrimental effect on the bargaining position or litigating position of the public body, and the chair, so the committee will discuss an upcoming application for sewer connection. And after this session, we will not be going back into public session.
Paul Kearsey, second.
Yep.
Paul Kearsey, second.
Okay, Bill McGowan approves.
Paul
Wayne
Kearsey
Sawchuck approved.
Paul Kearsey approved.
Very good. Okay, we'll see you in a few minutes. I
Okay,
guess.
now if you can vote to close this meeting, Bill, please.
Can I have a motion to close this